Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I would also like to congratulate the Honourable Member for Motherwell and Wishaw for securing today's debate, and I was very happy to support her application. And it's clear from members' contributions so far that we all deal with a number of cases from constituents regarding child maintenance payments, and in just a year as an MP I've dealt with several myself, so I am grateful for the opportunity to discuss the functioning of CMS in Parliament today, and it is particularly appropriate to recognise the pressures which have resulted from coronavirus and pressures on the hard-working CMS staff, to whom I pay tribute, who, as like so many of us around the country, will have had to get used to new ways of working. And there will also be pressures on parents in receipt of CMS, mostly one-parent families, as the economic impact of the pandemic threatens the livelihoods of many. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation's excellent Poverty 2020-21 report published last week makes that clear. Even before COVID, there were huge pressures on one-parent families. They had the highest in-work poverty rate. And they are also one of the groups who are most likely to be especially impacted by COVID-19. Single parents are predominantly women, more likely to work in the sectors hardest hit by COVID. They are more reliant on local jobs and are more likely to have struggled with childcare during lockdown. 4 in 5 people in families are in receipt of income-related benefits. Now, I mentioned constituency cases earlier, and I wanted to highlight one in particular. And this constituent contacted me right at the start of my time as an MP almost exactly a year ago. And her case is shocking. Her former husband had evaded making any financial contribution over an 18-year period to help her raise her 2 sons. And she was owed almost £30,000 in unpaid child maintenance. Now, I'm not intending to go into a blow-by-blow account of our dealings with the CMS over the last year. Thankfully, the debt is now being paid, and I am very grateful to Baroness Stephen-Scott for meeting with me twice in the autumn to try and resolve the case. But a few things stood out to me and to my constituent throughout this process that I wanted to take this opportunity to draw attention to. First was the sense of drift. I went to the CMS on several occasions asking what their next steps were, and responses were only forthcoming to me after some chasing. And my constituent had a similar experience. Months seemed to pass where very little progress was made. And then just when we thought the whole thing had been resolved, it turned out that the old liability orders issued against her ex-husband had been lost in the transfer from the CSA to the CMS. Now, in fairness, the CMS is replacing a discredited system. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, coronavirus will have played a part, especially in the spring. And I would add that by the autumn, engagement has been good. But for my constituent, these delays have been incredibly frustrating. She told me any correspondence I've had with child maintenance has been met with the same poor failures in service. Despite all of my efforts, there appears to be a distinct lack of accountability to take positive action. The second thing that struck me was the bureaucratic hoops that my constituent had to jump through in order for the money to be recovered. Her case had recently been transferred from the old CSA, and as a result, the CMS had to effectively start from scratch on trying to recover the money, even though it had been through the court order process previously. And that meant more hoops to jump through, including 2 occasions where her ex-partner had the ability to launch a review of a decision that had been made by the CMS, which of course he did. All they served to do was to delay and frustrate the recovery of money, which was already 18 years overdue. And I understand why those safeguards are in place, but it is incredibly frustrating. My constituent felt that the CMS was being more responsive to her ex-partner than to her. And third is the fact that my constituent had to come for me for this to be unblocked. She was getting nowhere on her own. When I escalated the case, I was able to speak to the minister, to the case manager, and that was a great help. But as so often the case, as I've learned over the last year, it shouldn't have to be that way. MPs are who people go to when they've exhausted every other option. They shouldn't have to take significant and sustained engagement from me and my casework team to resolve issues. We have to start designing processes that work for people. The tragedy is that my constituents' children are now adults. They've grown up. They have missed out on the support they needed at the time they needed it.